redo all the gutters because they were in pretty bad shape from the previous year to feed the rainwater catchment system. And then we were also to install 3 new additional tanks to increase just their municipal water capacity. And then to do that, we had to tie into those concrete tanks and make that kind of one system. And I guess the major challenge for this trip is, compared to last year, is last year's trip was kind of its own self-contained kind of system. And we got to set our parameters and kind of make it work accordingly. But this trip, we were completely intertwined with their existing system. So we had new challenges, figuring out how their system was already in place, how to work with it, how to change things without being disrespectful, upgrading things without showing, it took some finessing to make sure everything kind of went smoothly, and it took a lot of work and patience. But that's kind of the tank team, the excavating team. They were building a retaining wall underneath it, but the ground above it was still on a pretty big slope, so we had to go in and make sure it was all nice and level, and that there was enough solid dirt to support that much water and all the way to the water. So that took quite a bit of effort to get that all leveled and flat, and you can see where the lines are, where the tanks are going to be placed. So. And then there's the spring box, which actually technically isn't a spring box, it's just like a concrete storage tank. There's actually 2 concrete storage tanks stacked on top of each other. And they were both independent of each other, but just together. And the main line that fed the entire village went directly past these and then went like for a couple thousand feet up over a mountain and around, and then came back and ended right there. So it took a little while to figure out, where does the water actually go? What does it do? How do we work with it? And we found out that depending on which time of the year it is, that the water flows from the spring certain times of the year and goes in the pipes, and then when the spring is low and there's more water in the tanks, the water goes out of the pipes. So the water actually flows both directions in the pipes, which is not the most conventional, but that's what we had to work with. So, and you can see the dirty water on top, all the bad dirty pipes on the left. That was like an old system. We had to basically gut out a bunch of stuff and almost start from scratch. And that's the Springbox team up there. Sinead, Dave, and Shay, David, and I. And Jay. And that's after the spring box, so it's a little bit cleaner. On the left was that one box that had all those really horrible, messy, dirty pipes, and now it's just one clean pipe with a shut-off valve so we can isolate the system. And we made it to where instead of having 2 separate tanks stacked on top of each other, we put the 2 in tandem and used the top tank as kind of a sediment filter. So the water has to go into the top tank first, go through there, any particulates or sediment is going to collect in that, and then it'll gravity flow into the bottom tank. And when the bottom tank's full, we put a trough valve in it so it shuts the water off and doesn't just overflow the bottom tank. So that way we can have a little bit of control and not just have it fill up with like a foot of sludge in the year like it previously was. And then the top one's a lot easier to get into maintaining. And yeah, that's the spring box. And clean water, which is nice. And then of course the digging team and the gutters, which are beautiful and nice and new and shiny. And thankfully we had as many hands as we did because there was a lot that we had to do this year, and kind of breaking up into smaller teams and focusing our energy on certain parts and kind of having dedicated teams made it to where it was more digestible instead of just one huge overwhelming project. It was like 4 kind of smaller projects. And so there's the gutter team and then the other team that was doing the remote fill for last year's system. So that's kind of the project stuff. And that top left picture was the day that we were trying to figure out their system, and that was kind of stressful, a couple hours there was definite language barriers. We had Spanish speakers, but they didn't even know what they were trying to communicate to us because it's very technical terminology, and there was like 4 people who had worked with the system, and everybody had done one little piece, and nobody really knew the whole system from their village. So it took getting bits and pieces from everybody to kind of compile, all right, how does this whole overall system work now? It was an interesting moment. And we tested all of our patients a little bit. And then of course the kids, like that was like the trip. I mean, they were amazing, just having their smiling faces and just being there, just playing with us and distracting us and just kind of keeping the energy really light and knowing that, this is what we're doing it for. These are the kids that are going to benefit from all of our hard work, and just showing how grateful they were and how willing they were to help. I mean, little kids like Dylan and Daisy and Christian are the ones in the bottom right, and Marvin is one of the brothers. He's hanging upside down in the tank. And they were just there all the time, just willing to help with whatever they needed. They would haul tools up the hill. They were taking buckets out of the spring box with us. And yeah, it was great. And it just really reinforced why we were there. And that was a really powerful kind of aspect of the entire trip, was the kids and their families and stuff there. And that was one of the sketches that we had drawn here in the States. And to actually see it turn into real life, that's engineering. That we planned, designed, and it wasn't us doing this. This is what they wanted. This is what they asked for. They had told us they wanted tanks in this spot, and we kind of designed a system that would fit to their needs. And to plan something, you go to the store, buy all the bits, all the parts and pieces, and compile it all and build it all, and have everybody who doesn't really have too much experience be able to do this is pretty amazing. And to have a finished product to show for it is even better. Tanks. And then of course this is the moment that brings it all together, is when you actually have just random people from the community walking down the street, going up to the faucet and opening the faucet and have water come out. Things like that didn't exist before we were there. That's what they needed, and we helped to bring that to them. And yeah, that's the project. That's why we can do it. So that was a pretty powerful moment. And of course, just the cultural aspect, traveling, being with everybody as a team, which a lot of people have touched upon. And our flight to Tikal, and that's one of the meals we had on Lake Ativan, and that's driving up to Lake Ativan on the bottom left, overlooking it, and then of course the pyramid, the Taguana in Tikal. That just brings it all together. It's this is the culture, this is why we're here. And of course that's on top of Punta de Pacaya, and we're all really excited because we're on top of a volcano. After we have roasted marshmallows in a volcano, which not many people love to do, so we're just on a sugar high. And then Janae, she helps support me. And that's one of the, I'm just leaving Volta Grande, so that's just driving down. The new Rambo movie's coming out. Heard you were really good.
So my name is Janae. My experience kind of started with the last trip because I was involved in it. So I've been a part of the program for a long time, and it's really been a big part of me. As soon as we got to Guatemala, there was just really interesting things. I guess some of these were throughout the trip. These are the engineering aspects that I saw. It was totally different. From the arch, that's the famous arch that you'll see online, and then the pyramids in Tikal. And then the bridge was pretty interesting. As you can see, it's a lot different than bridges that we would have here. That was in Similk Champagne, so that was really cool. This next slide, this shows a lot about me working and what I learned on the job site. It kind of starts with tools that I've never used. So on the top, the strap wrench, I've never even heard of that before, so that was really cool. And then channel locks on the bottom in the middle, was using that. And then, of course, picture of me digging. That's what I did a lot of during the trip. And then the one that's on the left side here, that was carrying a bucket of dirty water. And if you look closely, you can tell that I've spilled it all over me. So that was a pretty rough day for me. So we worked really hard. And then the top middle picture is kind of cool because we were trying to hammer a hose barb into vinyl tubing, and it wasn't working. So I kind of picked up some random things, cinder blocks, and bricks. Okay, and then this one, this kind of just shows the project that I worked on. This is the part that I worked the most on, and it was interesting to see all the way on the left side. That's the picture that shows sort of the beginning. That was the earliest picture I guess I could find of it, and then it shows when it was all flattened out and nice, and then with the tanks on it. And so this is where I spent a lot of my time and learned a lot about even just digging and how to use the shovels correctly, and so that was a big experience for me. And then this slide. So these pictures, I love them because if you look at everyone's faces, you can tell like how hard they're working or the struggles they're going through at the moment. The top one on the left side with Carl, he looked like he was in deep thought, so I guess that shows a lot of like the thinking process. And then the other one on the top, David, coming out of the tank, so that was one of the days that they were pulling out sludge, as well as the one with Nathan on the bottom left. And on this one here, it says they just work on the pipes, but I don't know, I just like the expressions of everyone. And then this one, these are, I guess, all really good pictures, but these ones really like hit home for me because it showed teamwork, especially the tanks. So on the top, it kind of shows like all the guys like carrying the tanks, and it was cool because the tanks would come up in trucks, and someone would yell like, "Oh, the tanks are here!" And guys from Volta Grande and from Korea would run down there and grab the tanks, and I watched all three of them come up, and it was just really amazing to see how fast they brought the tanks up together. And then I really liked the picture where one of the boys, I think his name is Kevin, he was pulling down the barbed wire for Jack. So it just kind of shows teamwork. And then the other one was when we were playing hacky sack, the hacky sack went on the roof. And so it probably took like 5 seconds to get it down. It was a really quick, I don't know how someone got a picture, but it was just like so fast. One of the kids climbed up there, and I think David's helping him, and it was us working together. Just to get something done. And then this slide kind of just shows like some really fun points of the trip for me, us kind of messing around on the work site in the trench. And then the picture in Tikal, not everyone was there, but most of us were there, and I just told everyone to make a funny face, and almost everyone did. So I really like looking back at that picture. It shows everyone's personalities a little bit. And then the other one is in Smoke Champagne. We were actually in the back of a pickup truck, and it was really interesting. It's totally different than it is here, because first of all, we were in the back of a pickup truck. Going up some crazy road that only one was going to make it up. And we thought we were squished then, but tons of people, like as we were going up the road, there was so many more people piling into the back of the truck. And like I think we added like 10 people, so it was really interesting to be a part of that. And then these are kind of the bad times. So of course the spider that was crawling inside my jacket, that was a freak out moment for me. And then me and Melissa got kind of sunburned. It's kind of a funny picture. The other spider is in Smoke Champagne, that was actually on Shay's bed. So that's in our hotel room. And then some of the bug bites. And then the picture of Kalika and Pablo on the ground was the day that they were sick. So a little bit of that did happen, but we worked through it and got everything done. And then these are just some of like the cultural experiences, some of their housing and the kids working, and that was actually on the work site, so it's really cool to see that. And then the bottom picture is a cemetery, so that's a lot different than what we see here. It's really colorful. Okay. And then these are just some really nice pictures that I pulled out. Things I enjoyed. The one at the top is Smoke Champagne and Lake Attilan. And then the ocellated turkey was pretty cool too, in Central Park. So these are just some like memorable pictures. I guess if I had to smash 4 pictures together of things that I saw that I liked, it would be this. And then this one kind of shows a lot of like the learning experience that I took back with me. So the picture of me in the airport, that's in Tikal. I was reading a book, and it's actually a material science book. And I was really into it. I'm not much of like a reader or a writer or anything to do with English, but I found myself reading, so I really liked that picture. And then also the journal. So this is one of the journals I have with me, and then that's the other one that I got in Guatemala. But once again, yeah, I'm not much of a writer. I mean, I could improve on my spelling and vocabulary as an engineering major, so it was really cool that Joanne assigned us to be writing, because the whole time I was like, I don't know if you can be able to write, and I did my best to keep up with it. But now that I'm home, I found myself like writing my journal still and trying to keep up with it, and I think I'm going to continue to journal and